introduced to council on August the 19th, 2025, and received first and second reading at that time. A public hearing is now being convened pursuant to Section 464 of the Local Government Act to consider the bylaw referenced above. The proposed new bylaw will replace the current official community plan and will ensure the city's planning framework remains current with provincial legislation and community priorities. It consolidates previous amendments into a single, clear document, integrates related municipal and regional plans, and provides an updated basis for zoning and land use decisions. As third reading has not yet been passed, several minor modifications proposed by council at the August 19th meeting have since been made to the proposed bylaw. On page 7, we've added trees and landscape features to the definition of heritage in the glossary of terms. On page 13, in the first paragraph, the First Nations are now listed in alphabetical order: the Ktunaxa, the Syilx, and the Sinixt First Nations. On page 29, the names of the OCP Advisory Committee members are now listed in alphabetical order. On page 62, policy 4.2.6 has been amended to include Indigenous programming. On page 78, policy 5.1.1.5 has been amended to remove the words "in Nelson." On page 90, the name of the Nelson Museum Archives and Gallery has been corrected in policy 5516. On page 110, Indigenous communities has been replaced by Indigenous nations in policy 5.9.2.7. On page 126, under policy 5, the maximum permitted fine has been increased to $50,000 as per recent legislative amendment. The minimum fine remains the same. On page 165, the design guidelines have been amended to clarify that windows must be double paned or better, and a grammatical mistake has been fixed. On page 172, the laneway house design guidelines encourage fire smart hedges rather than evergreen hedges. And so there are attachments that from August 19th, 2025, request for decision. And that is my statement. So at this point, if I could just have staff confirm that the statutory notice requirements were met.
They have been met, Mayor. The ad was placed in the Nelson Star on August 28th and September 4th, 2025.
Thank you. So moving on in the agenda, item 5. So we now have the staff presentation and background information. So I'll turn it over to staff. Welcome Natalie and Ken.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council and members of the public. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ken Bordeaux and I'm the senior planner with the city. And beside me is Natalie Andrea Janzik, our Director of Development Services and Climate Leadership. So today I'm going to provide an overview, a high-level overview of the official community plan. And I'll talk about key changes. For the most part, many sections of the draft OCP have remained the same. So I just wanted to highlight key changes. I'll also talk a little bit about the OCP bylaw itself, including the 5 different sections, which include background information, the vision, values, and principles, objectives and policies, including targets for the city, maps, and design guidelines. And I'll also speak about how we got here, including the public engagement that's occurred over the past 2.5 years. There are a number of other related bylaw amendments on council's agenda tonight, so I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll wrap up with potential next steps. So, going on to key changes, as I'd mentioned previously, most of the document has remained the same, but one of the biggest changes is there's less text. When it comes to page numbers, there's roughly the same number of pages, but about half the amount of text. So we've been a lot more concise with our wording and taken out some redundancies within the OCP. We've also consolidated the policies and tied them clearly to objectives. We've updated the land use analysis, including incorporating information received through the recently approved housing needs assessment. This OCP also moves forward on long-standing land use goals that have been in OCPs throughout the decades, including policies to ensure that Nelson remains walkable, affordable, we have flexible land use regulations, and we're encouraging a mix of different uses. As well, this new OCP provides a greater focus on reconciliation, the economy, heritage, public space, wildfire protection, housing, and climate. And I also wanted to highlight for the very first time, the City of Nelson OCP includes a specific section on how the city intends to reconcile with Indigenous nations. And there's also, for the first time, a section specifically around policies related to the economy. As well, this draft OCP includes a new Baker Street Heritage Conservation Area, which in some aspects is new, but it's simply changing the type of tool the city would be using to protect heritage on Baker Street. So in previous OCPs, development permits were the way to go to ensure heritage conservation. We've now moved towards a new tool that's in the Local Government Act, heritage conservation areas. As well, the draft OCP is more concise, as I'd mentioned, flexible, and the design guidelines, which talk about what new buildings should look like, have also been revised. As well, the new OCP includes development approval information. So this is things like traffic impact assessments, geotechnical studies, impacts on retail corridors, that sort of thing. This is something that the cities have been using for many years. It's just now been formalized through recent changes made to the Local Government Act. As well, the OCP for the first time has a glossary of terms. So if you're reading through the OCP and you're not quite sure what a specific term like heritage conservation area means, you can go to the glossary and you can find out more about that specific term. And as well, there's new and updated targets. So just to give you a bit of an idea, as I've mentioned, there's 5 different sections. There's the background and contextual information, the vision, values, and principles, the objectives and policies, the maps to help explain the policies and objectives, and then the design guidelines. So when it comes to background and contextual information, there's quite a bit of information in there about the demographics of the community, information related to total zone capacity, the status of vacant lands within the community, as well as the housing needs assessment and other related demographic information. When it comes to the land use policy section, this diagram here is just to simply illustrate that we've revised the land use designation chart, which talks about what types of buildings would be permitted in different areas of the community. So in this particular case, we have the OCP designation column that has a diagram clearly illustrating the types of buildings. So in this case, we have small scale residential areas. And it shows the variety of different housing types that you could be permitted to have in those areas, including houses with suites, triplexes, fourplexes, and so on. You then have the second column, the one in the middle, the characteristics and principal uses. So this lists at a very high level the types of uses that would be permitted in different areas of the community. And then on the right-hand side, you have the building form column that talks about what the maximum heights would be permitted in each area. As well, we also have at the top a section called all areas. So in some circumstances, there's some types of development that would be allowed in all areas of the community, including potentially a new fire hall, public utility infrastructure, and potentially affordable housing with a public consultation and rezoning component to it. And continuing on with the land use policy section, as I mentioned before, we've reorganized this so there's a clear connection between objectives and policies. So objectives are what the city wants to accomplish, and the policies are how the city is going to accomplish it. So in this particular case, or this example, the objective is that the city wants to protect the community from wildfire and reduce the risk of wildfire. And then you have the related policies that explain how the city is planning to do that over the next number of years. The current OCP, or the 2013 OCP, has the objectives in one section and then the policies in a completely different section. So it makes it very difficult for the community and staff and council to directly link an objective with a policy. As well, we also have our guiding principles of health, equity, and climate resilience. And there's a direct link there with the infographic showing how that policy addresses a specific guiding principle. We also have the targets, and the current OCP has 7 targets, primarily related to climate adaptation and resilience. This new OCP has 15 different targets. And in total, there's 1 target related to the climate, and those targets surrounding greenhouse gas reduction targets are drawn directly from Nelson Next. There's 1 target related to land use, 3 related to housing, 1 related to reconciliation, 3 related to transportation, 1 related to infrastructure, 1 for community well-being, and 4 targets related to the natural environment. So if council is to approve this OCP, in the long run, it's staff's goal to bring back potentially a yearly report or a bi-yearly report as data becomes available, to be able to report out to council and the community on how the city is meeting these targets, or in some cases perhaps not meeting these targets. And these reports would be based on data we either already have access to, such as building permit files, or other data that we can easily obtain from reliable sources such as BC Housing, CMHC, the census, and so forth. As well, I just wanted to highlight the maps as well. There is quite a bit of text, but there's also a lot of maps to help explain the different topics that we're talking about. So we have the land use designation map that explains what could potentially be built on your property or your neighbor's property or in a specific neighborhood of the community. And then following that, Schedule C through I are the various different maps that the Local Government Act requires that we have, including road network map, natural environment and hazardous lands area map, development permit areas, potential cycling and trail routes, parks, open space and public facilities, and then the water and sewer infrastructure map as well. So on to the design guidelines. So as I'd mentioned previously, the design guidelines have been reviewed thoroughly, including in the case of the heritage guidelines. They've been vetted by heritage consultants and architects. And as I've mentioned as well, we have the new heritage conservation area rather than what we were doing previously, which is requiring site-specific DP applications for heritage properties on Baker Street. So on to how we got here. So as I mentioned at the top of the presentation, we're close to 2.5 years of public engagement. Within that, there's been 5 phases of work, including the project scoping, visioning, policy review and development, analysis and research, creating multiple drafts of the OCP, and then public review. And that, as I'll talk about momentarily, there's been public engagement throughout this 2.5 year process. So numerous drafts, 2 council workshops, and many more presentations. Staff estimate that between 1,100 and 1,700 individuals have actively participated at least one time, either through a survey or a meeting or some sort of public engagement. So staff estimate just under 1,200 survey responses. There's been 10 pop-up events, 5 public open houses, 4 policy workshops with the public, 1 school workshop, as well as engagement with 3 First Nations. and 11 different other organizations in the community, including housing providers, environmental groups, transportation groups, the Chamber of Commerce, Selkirk College, architects, and various different groups representing equity deserving individuals. Onto the more online portion of the engagement. There's been 4,700 or just over 4,700 unique website visits. So that means at least 4,700 people have looked at the Nelson 2050 website. There have been 250 people who've signed up for our e-newsletter. The first draft that was made available to the public and to council in January was downloaded close to 800 times. And we've had many different forms of advertising, including ads online, through social media, ads on the radio, sandwich boards on the street, ads on the buses, and ads in the local newspaper. As well, we also wanted to highlight that at the beginning of the process, or near the beginning of the process, Council also convened an OCP advisory committee who met 13 times and had a number of email exchanges in addition. And through all of that engagement with the advisory committee, it led to a unanimous recommendation in favor of Council approving the OCP. As well, the draft OCP was also provided to the Advisory Planning Commission, who also endorsed the OCP unanimously. As well, as I promised at the beginning, I just wanted to touch on some of the accompanying bylaw amendments. I'll just note that item 1, the zoning bylaw, is subject to the public hearing. The other items, item 2 and 3, are not subject of the public hearing, but they are going to be on Council's agenda later tonight. So in the case of the zoning bylaw, there's a number of minor changes. For the most part, involves taking regulations that are currently in the OCP and should rightly be in the zoning bylaw because they're more regulatory in nature rather than policy based. So one of the bigger changes is that some of the properties in Railtown that are currently zoned MU4 are going to be rezoned to a new zone, MU3A. The regulations in the new zone are going to be essentially identical to the current zoning. The issue that we have right now with the current MU4 zone is that it doesn't specify a height. It references you back to the OCP, which is not best practice. Anytime you have any sort of very specific regulations, it should be in the zoning bylaw. As well, we have the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw that is mainly housekeeping in nature. There is one section where we are adding fines for people failing to obtain a heritage alteration permit in the new Baker Street Heritage Conservation area. And then we have the development application procedures bylaw that introduces the development application information. As I've mentioned before, that is something new in legislation, and the province has said that municipalities can ask for a variety of different reports and studies from developers, but you have to codify it in procedures bylaw. And my final slide, next steps. So one of the best ways of implementing a new OCP is by updating your zoning bylaw to make sure that your detailed regulations align with the policies within the OCP. So our intention is once Council approves the new OCP, we would then move on to public engagement and engagement with Council on a new zoning bylaw. And the primary purpose is to prepare an updated, legally sound, enforceable, and modern zoning bylaw, and making sure that that zoning bylaw is consistent with the OCP, Local Government Act, and the multitude of recent provincial changes to legislation. We also want to make sure that the zoning bylaw is accessible and concise and flexible. We've often heard from the community, and we struggle as planners with the current zoning bylaw because there's many things in there that are out of date, or they could be rewritten to be a lot more clear and concise. So depending on the outcome of tonight, our intention is to bring forward the zoning bylaw review this fall with public engagement in a council workshop. Our intention is to have a draft at the end of 2025, and then we will be going through a public hearing process and public engagement again, hopefully in early 2026. So that wraps up my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions for staff on the, what's been presented again tonight? Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the chair, I just wanted, if you could, talk a little bit about how this is a live document, just for the public to know that once it's done, it's not like it's sealed in concrete or anything. This will shift and change. Is that correct?
Yes, through the chair to the councillor. Yes, OCPs are definitely live documents, and at this point, council, the public, and staff are trying to draft the best possible document based on the available data now. So it's expected that OCPs could be amended a number of times based on circumstances, and perhaps I think the mayor had mentioned this previously around engagement with First Nations. Some of the nations have agreed to engage with the city, and some of them chose not to. If we were to engage with those Indigenous nations, we may need to make some changes to the OCP to reflect the desire of those communities. As well, the province, with the recent legislative changes, has recognized the fact that OCPs are living documents, and they've mandated that municipalities must review their OCP every 5 years. Thank you.
So just on my list of questions in terms of, can you report on any public correspondence that occurred before the deadline, and also was there any further correspondence that was received after the deadline?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so in total, we received 58 pieces of correspondence before the deadline, which was Friday at noon. There were 55 letters regarding section 4.9, the Granite Point redevelopment lands. 2 pieces of correspondence regarding Schedule F, which is the cycling and trail routes map, particularly around Perrier Lane. And then there was 1 piece of correspondence regarding a variety of different topics. About an hour and a half ago, staff did receive an additional 40 plus letters. However, we haven't provided those to council because we haven't had an opportunity to review them, redact them, that sort of thing.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any other further questions? Okay, seeing none at this point. So my next thing is I'm supposed to ask if there anybody from the public wants to speak. And of course, I already have a list here, and I just want to let people know that as people have come in later, I will be asking if you didn't sign the list and you decide that you would like to speak, I will be acknowledging you as we go through the proceedings, but I'm going to start with the list I have in front of me, if that's okay for everybody. So given that we have a list of speakers, when you come up to speak, please state your name, street name, and describe your relationship to the issue or presentation. All comments and answers are through the mayor, who is addressed as Mayor Morrison. Speak slowly and clearly, and speakers are limited to 5 minutes. And do you have a little that you can wave when you have 30 seconds left?
I can wave this blue folder.
Okay,
Yep.
Perfect. So you'll get a little sign there. And yeah, so let's get started. The first name I have on the list is Kim Bader. Kim, welcome.
Hello, Mayor Morrison. I'm Kim Bader. I live in Rosemont at 1901 Choquette Avenue. My door leads out to the second hole of the golf course. And I have a few comments I want to make. I'll keep them brief. You know, when I look at the OCP at the state it's in now, I like what I see, and I see that there is a focus on affordable housing. And I guess I have some concern with the current proposal that's before you in terms of what would happen with the development on the golf course lands. Given that I lived in Banff for 32 years and watched Banff and Canmore deal with being a tourism community and the pressures of development that come along with that. Having also visited Whistler and many other resort communities in Canada and other provinces, and I think there's a cautionary tale here. We sometimes say, well, we can't really predict the future, but we can. We can see what happens in tourist resort communities, and that is these high-end developments take up precious land resource. They also spike housing prices, and so you never get ahead. And what ends up happening is, in Banff, people who lived in Banff ended up moving to Canmore, and then they ended up moving from Canmore to Cochrane. In Whistler, they moved to surrounding communities, and so people who work in the community often then can't be residents of the community because the cost of housing exceeds what service industry wages are, what students can afford. So I think I just urge you to pay attention to the creep that happens with tourism driving the economy, which it certainly does here in Nelson to some degree. You've got objectives and principles, and you've got targets. But I think you need to strengthen the piece around affordable housing. I would urge you to strengthen it, whether that's creating a specific percentage. I think you need to look at the mechanism that works best here. I see that there's some things in place in terms of, 40% of, targets, but I think I'd ask you, please build those stronger. Because once that precious land's gone, it's almost impossible to recover it. So please look at that. I am concerned about 4.9, the commercial development in Rosemont attached to the new golf course development. Rosemont is a different kind of community in Nelson. We need to keep the commercial development in the downtown core as much as possible. I do not believe we need the level of commercial development that's proposed for that area. I also have a concern. I live right beside the golf course, and myself and many neighbors have had cars and our buildings hit by golf balls consistently. They come flying across Choquette Avenue. Some kid is going to get hit with a golf ball going down to Rosemont School. Or, I had a neighbor who was missed by less than a foot with someone who drove wildly. And it happens frequently because I sit on my deck and watch it. So I would urge you to require the golf course, the current golf course, and or the redevelopment to put adequate screening up, because what's there is not working currently. And if Halo chooses to not go ahead with the development, which is a possibility, the current not-for-profit golf course may or may not be able to remain viable. We know they've struggled for years. I think it's really important to think about, well, what should that land look like? What should we do with that land? Is it possible to have a short, like a 9-hole course there and a whole bunch of affordable housing? Is it possible to keep green space? But we don't want it to just go to the next developer who will do something else that may not really answer the needs of affordable housing in our community. I think affordable housing has to be at the top of the list in all of your considerations when you're looking at development right now. Thank you for your time.
Sorry, I didn't get my complete little list of things I'm supposed to read to you, and I know that people like to clap, but one of the things is in a public meeting, because you cannot do that, because you, like what that proponent said, the next proponent might speak against that. You can't boo him. So I just need you to, as lovely as it would be to clap, because clapping usually isn't consistent at a public meeting, I can tell you that from years of sitting here. I have to ask you to refrain from cheering or clapping once a speaker has finished. My regrets. I follow this script so I don't miss anything, and this year, this meeting, it wasn't there in my little script, because there's a lot of things to make sure that a public meeting runs according to the rules and regulations. So my apologies. Congratulations, Kim, you got the clap, but we're gonna not do that anymore. Okay, next up I have Rosie Eberly.
Good evening, Mayor Morrison. My name is Rosemary Everly. I live at 508 Innes Street in Uphill. And I would just like to iterate my concerns too about the development up in Rosemont, and to make sure that the official community plan is worded sufficiently enough that it does serve us. I'd like to think when Mayor Dooley and Council voted in 2019 to amend the official community plan to support Granite Point, they had not thought of the unintended consequences. But we know those unintended consequences now because Halo has unashamedly advertised a very shishi and exclusive resort-style development with a very shishi commercial hub. So my request to Council, and if I may quote you, Mayor Morrison, I understand that Council's idea of a commercial hub was a corner store, whereas I don't think that's Halo's idea of a commercial hub. So I just ask Council to consider removing the amendment to the 2019 OCP that allowed the commercial hub up there. And just again, to reiterate that we do everything we can to make Nelson, keep Nelson a place where everybody can live. Thank you.
I one time clapped in the parliament because there was somebody there who was like a doctor that had done something wonderful, and the security guard was like, no. Seems really cool.
Next up, we have Adam Thomas.
Morrison, thank you, Council. I'm just another concerned citizen here who is concerned about the, of course, the affordability of Nelson and the unique disposition of the city that we all live in and all love. Regarding section 4.9, I will also request that the council consider removing the from the 2019 OCP the amendment that allows for the commercial hub at Granite Point, because I cannot see myself how that is a good fit for our community. A new commercial hub risks draining vitality from Baker Street and threatens our local businesses, our culture and economic resilience that we have worked so long to develop. The development of a luxury community and commercial hub is, in my opinion, not in line with the community values that have and continue to make Nelson a true jewel. The vibrancy and creativity of the city comes not from financial wealth over there, but from a cultural wealth in here. And it is not built by developers, but it is sustained by the citizens. And so with that in mind, I think it would be in alignment with the stated values and goals and outcomes around affordability and green space and accessibility that the commercial hub at Granite Point not be allowed to continue.
Next up, we have Stevland Ambrose.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My remarks will take about 4 minutes. In 2019, Granite Point applied for both a rezoning and an OCP amendment at the same time. Those two processes moved forward together, and in practice, they became conflated. The rezoning, with its 300 housing units, became the lightning rod for public attention. That's what everyone heard about and debated. Meanwhile, the OCP amendment, which established a commercial hub, slipped through virtually unnoticed. I would argue that it was the more controversial of the two, and people realized it was even being decided. I have in my hand a copy of the 2019 Granite Point Neighborhood Plan. Within it, we find the words of dozens of residents who pushed back at public meetings and through letters. Their concerns focused on traffic and road safety, on density and public building heights, on pressure to schools and services, on the loss of green space and wildlife, on noise, disruption, and potential impacts to the enjoyment of their properties. Every single resident who complained focused on the rezoning and the housing units. There's not one mention of the OCP amendment or commercial hub. And in the years since, not a single resident I've spoken to who participated in that process was even aware that an OCP amendment was on the table. And then on the same evening in 2019, Council approved both the rezoning and the OCP amendment. The rezoning was debated by Council for minutes, but the OCP amendment passed without any further scrutiny. Years later, a developer, who shall remain nameless, used a national newspaper advertorial to proclaim that Nelson already had a resort community penciled into its OCP, which may have been an odd exaggeration, to say the least. But either way, it left residents feeling blindsided. Here's the contrast. 2019, residents thought they were debating traffic density. How many units, how tall, how much congestion, what it would mean for schools and green space. 5 years later, they woke to headlines about a sweeping luxury resort, complete with Austrian crystal glassware, hydrotherapy baths, ultrasonic colonics, Vermont gold speck towels, and porcelain from Viray and Bach. The process may have met the letter of the law, but it failed its purpose of meaningful public engagement. And what we are left here with today is a stale, inherited approval whose shelf life has run out. Since 2019, Nelson has undergone this OCP rewrite, adopted new climate and sustainability priorities, faced mounting housing challenges, and seen massive community pushback over this very commercial hub. It is no longer reasonable or smart for an unnoticed OCP amendment from 6 years ago to dictate our city's future. I therefore request that Council sunset Section 4.9 of the draft OCP in its entirety. I have, on my other hand, 97 letters from people who couldn't make it here tonight, who feel exactly the same way. This is about restoring faith and transparency in the OCP process. If Granite Point or any developer wishes to pursue a commercial hub, they are free to reapply, this time with full public knowledge and scrutiny. Thank you for your time.
Next up. You guys just can't resist, can you, back there? Next up is Benno, Art.
Hi, Mayor Morrison. I am here to talk about my concern about the commercial hub at the Granite Point area and say that I'm against it and want us to just focus on affordable housing and not let this be a possibility to go through. And yeah, that's all I have to say. I grew up in Fernie and I've seen repercussions from similar style developments, and it really affects the town and yeah, just really change the culture of a town when you have this style of housing coming in and people that are buying them up as second homes or whatnot. And that's why I moved here and that's why I love it here. So thanks.
Thank you. Next up, Gray Muser. Just a reminder, a request from a counselor to make sure you state your name and where you live, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Gray Musser. I currently reside at 108 High Street. I was born and raised in West Kootenays. And I want to take this opportunity to urge Council to remove Section 4.9 from the OCP, restore Granite Point to its 2013 OCP status. The reason is straightforward. Most residents choose this city for its heritage, uniqueness, and beauty. It's not Squamish, Kelowna, Banff, or Aspen. People value it for this difference. Nelson, I believe, is at a turning point. If we adopt policies that accommodate any outside developer's wishes, no matter how narrow, exclusive, or self-interested, we lose the very qualities that define our community. Other municipalities have faced the same challenge, chosen to act, protecting their character, to become the foundation for their long-term success. We now have an opportunity to do the same here. It's also important to note that a public concern on this issue is broad and well documented. The petition, which was submitted earlier this year, which included over 2,500 signatures, demonstrates strong community alignment with this request to remove the section 4.9 from the new draft of the OCP. Taking this step will affirm Council's commitment to safeguarding the city's character and ensuring a balanced, sustainable future. Thank you.
I'm gonna go with Andrew Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, and staff. I'm here representing the Nelson and Area Community Transportation Group. It is about transportation sections of the OCP. Put my glasses on here. And we understand that the OCP is a guiding document for the city and the residents. We have studied the transportation-related aspects of the OCP and have developed a detailed response to both on the first and the 5.5-page transportation section 5.8, and secondly the cycling and trails routes map section F, with its approximate 20 current and future trails and routes. So we provide a report to you as well, and we believe that we provide the OCP necessary perspectives. We have also studied the excellent Nelson Next document, and we are responding to the expectation that residents participate in all ways to support the city in meeting the climate challenges outlined in Nelson Next. And I quote here from Nelson Next, page 11, Nelson Next will require unprecedented collaboration and action from every resident, organization, business, and sector. We are a residents group of experienced and committed pedestrians, cyclists, and transit users. We call ourselves the Nelson and Area Community Transportation Group. It is Nelson and Area, as our Nelson community comprises both of those who live within the city and those who live in area neighborhoods closely adjacent to the city. Two authorities, but one community. We all work and study and shop and recreate and more within the city. Our group includes a wildlife biologist, a health information specialist, 2 family physicians, a professional planner, hydronic heating specialist and a transit and climate environment advocate. It is clear to us all, both the city and the residents of Nelson, from the heavy and increasingly large number of vehicles driving and parking in Nelson, that there must be a dramatic and urgent increase in the proportion of citizens who walk and cycle and use transit. The climate emergency also requires rapid, substantial response from all of us. We've had good conversations with most of the council members, with senior management, as well as development services and climate leadership planners. We think that cycling, pedestrian and transit users, user groups and residents such as ours, to be effective in what is expected in Nelson Next from the residents and citizens of our wider community, that we need to sit with the city, the Minister of Transport and Transit, and the RDCK at tables where discussions regarding infrastructure and conditions for pedestrians, cyclists and transit users are considered and decided. We believe that Nelson needs effectively involved residents to be champions and advocates. Final note here, at least 7 Nelson residents will be attending the BC Cycling Coalition Active Transportation Summit in Kelowna as of later this week. 3 of our group will participate. This speaks of the level of active transportation commitment from our citizens. Our request then is that the OCP includes this perspective, that capable citizen groups committed to advocacy for active transportation and transit be asked by the city to participate, to sit at tables where active transportation and transit issues are considered and decided. This is necessary to be able to effectively collaborate. Such public participation was recommended in the June 1995 Urban Systems Integrated Transportation Strategy Report to the city. So, this is a good plan, I think, obviously, to involve citizens, residents effectively in planning regarding active transportation and transit use. Thank you for your attention and for consideration. Thank you.
Next up, I have Kiara Lynch.
Hello, Council and Mayor. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our concerns this evening. I'm Kira Lynch. I grew up in this area. I am an art curator and I'm also a local realtor. Primarily, I serve young people, first-time homebuyers, farmers, seniors, and I try to focus my business on the local community. These people are finding it harder and harder to afford housing here, and I'm very concerned with the way that the direction this community is taking regarding pricing, the price of affordable housing in the area primarily. Regarding the OCP, I did not feel like the commercial hub as proposed in section 4.9 was clearly, we weren't given an opportunity to speak to it, or maybe we were, but we didn't understand that we had that opportunity. And this commercial hub is a real concern to me because it will focus on the developer's clientele and not the people of this community. It will provide services to them primarily. I'm not opposed to a community hub per se in Rosemont myself, because that could go along the lines of walkable cities, green cities, but it's the fact that it's the developer who would own this commercial hub that is really problematic. Therefore, I, along with most of the others who spoke here tonight, do request that Council remove section 4.9 from the OCP and bring it back to its 2013 version. Thank you so much.
I have Bernadette Lynch next.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Bernadette Lynch and I live at 711 Latimer Street. I'm a homeowner here in Nelson, having bought within the past 5 years. We came here from living in Banff and then Canmore, Alberta, where we saw, as a previous speaker said, how the unbridled expansion of those towns pushed residents from Banff to Canmore, where the commercialization of the downtown has by now made both towns virtually unrecognizable, causing the loss of what made them distinct and turning them into a Disneyland caricature of both towns. Too expensive for local people to live. Too late, the town councils have ruined what drew people to live there in the first place. We came here to get away from that. And I understand the tax dollar temptation of big outside investment. It's very understandable for a council, but it comes with far too high a cost. Please remove section 4.9 from the OCP.
Next up, I have Sammy, don't know his first or last name. I know you're gonna tell us.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Like most people here, I'm concerned about the developments in Granite Point. I live on Hendrick Street today. I'm a former resident of Rosemont. I'm a business owner in town as well. And yeah, my concerns are basically that the developers in question have proven to be really unethical. They are very divisive. Their messaging and branding is entirely to people who are outside of this community. They scoff and make fun of the community, and that's not really what should be welcome to Nelson. Pretty much everybody in this town has spoken up against this developer and how they're approaching this development, and yeah, the way in which the section 4.9 was added into the OCP without any kind of meaningful public engagement defeats the purpose of a community plan. It's not really a community plan when it's the desires of a developer for profit while creating divisiveness in the community while raising prices. Yeah, we're in the midst of a housing affordability crisis. I think the first speaker, Kim, talked about how the OCP as a whole has lots of sections that focus on affordable housing, and this kind of does the opposite of that. So it's like, is the focus affordable housing or not? And like most people here, I urge you guys to strike section 4.9 in its entirety from the OCP. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, I have Aaron Kraken.
Hi everyone, I'm Mayor Morrison, and thanks for having us. Yeah, like many people before me, I'm coming to speak about the same issue. My name is Aaron Korbacher and I live at 1445 Knox Road. I'm a bit of a procrastinator, so I'm halfway through what I wrote, so I'll read a little bit and then I'll speak off the top. I moved to Nelson 6 years ago and I currently have the pleasure of living adjacent to the Granite Point Golf Course. And I'm here to request that Council remove section 4.9 from the OCP. I moved here because of the mountains and I've stayed because of the culture. Along with our city being an arts, culture, and tourism hub of the interior, we are also a city rooted in care. This beautiful and inclusive city is built off the backs of working class people who run businesses, volunteer, raise families, create, and build community each and every day. I fear that the proposed luxury development will not bring in clientele that support or contribute to our community in a meaningful way. As it is advertised by the developers, Nelson is to be flown in and flown out of after a few rounds of golf. As a 34-year-old, many of my similarly aged peers are looking to start families, but the price of homes is pushing them out. Many of them are choosing to live in places like Salmo or the Valley or Castlegar or Caslow because they simply can't afford to live in Nelson. These are people who want to contribute to our communities in meaningful ways and build on the wonderful culture that we all have created. And just on this piece about transparency and trust in planning, I strongly believe that this is a time where our city and our government needs to build more trust with the public. I'm sure you've had many people coming in here who are talking about a lot of the other developments in Nelson and maybe aren't rooted in facts, but there is a current rise in distrust with public institutions. And in 2019, residents opposed the rezoning, but were never clearly informed that a permanent OCP change was tucked in alongside it. So this in itself undermines public trust. So I really hope that the council makes a decision this time around to continue to build that trust with the community. So yeah, once again, just requesting that we remove 4.9 from the OCP. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of my list. And like I said at the beginning, is that a number of you have come into the room since I was handed the list, because this was a sign up at the door. Are there other people who would like to speak? Gentleman at the door, come on in. And so if you could tell me slowly so I can add you onto the list what your name, first name and last name is.
Paul Sasso, and I live on Creek Street in Nelson. And thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for coming so much. I've been working on this Halo thing for quite a while, and it's been thoroughly interesting. What I would like to say is I feel almost thankful for them for coming by with their terrible pitch and totally not reading the room. Because we really needed to be galvanized, and we are galvanized. And I can tell you, these guys are a symptom. And getting rid of 4.9, I think is great. Let's remove that. Let's keep Rosemont residential, and let's kind of pull the carpet out from under them a little bit. But I would also like to note that there are about a dozen other developers building $1 million condos in this town as we speak, who didn't roll in and write an article in the Globe and Mail proclaiming their kind of idiocy. So I think we need to, while we deal with this particular situation in this way, that I must thank Gray for all his work going to the bottom of this rabbit hole and figuring this out. Well done. But I would also say we need to look at this more broadly, and we need to figure out how and why this happened and how we can move towards the things that everyone in this room believes in and the direction where we want this to go, our town. And so I have a couple of ideas, and there's a million more that we can develop over the coming years and months. But one of them would be we have an opportunity when people are rezoning land to dictate how that rezoning goes. And Vancouver and many other municipalities are getting into this now and making it necessary that when there is a rezoning, we're mandating affordable housing. So the golf course is zoned park, as we know, and there may be other land in this area that is zoned park. And why don't we just say that parkland is a priority, as is affordable housing, and this is all in the OCP already. So if an organization such as the Golf Course Society comes to the city and asks to have land rezoned from parks to high density residential, let's take, say, I mean, you can work out the percentages, but say 50% remains park, 25% goes to affordable housing, and 25% can go to market housing. I have one other idea. What was the other idea? Okay, give me 1 second here. Do I have 1 second? Probably. Oh yeah. And also, a lot of people expressed interest in affordable housing, keeping things affordable here, and where are we gonna get the money to do that? I know affordable housing is difficult for the city to achieve, they don't often pay a lot of development taxes. Well, let's look at a progressive development tax rate, wherein somebody wants to build huge development, multi-million dollars, or wants to build multi-million dollar houses, let's raise the tax on that incrementally as we get into these higher priced items without where there will be no affordable housing made available. Just like income tax or whatever, you wanna build something swanky that's not helping the cohesiveness of the community or the affordability, let's tax that more strongly and bring that into an affordable housing fund where we can then root that in a way that's gonna keep this community accessible. Thank you.
Young lady with the glasses, sunglasses.
Mayor and Council, thank you for taking the time to listen to all the comments today. My name's Claire Kelly and I live at 410 in Street West in Rosemont. I am a resort town refugee and this is where I moved to from Canmore, where I grew up. Only 2 members of the graduating class of my year currently reside in Canmore, and they are 40-year-olds living in their parents' basements. So I would like to just lend my voice to say we do already know what happens in a situation where you support what I would describe as an inorganic neighborhood. So instead of organic businesses slowly buying pieces of property and applying to have the use or the zoning changed, you have a very large development relative to those other areas that becomes a pre-planned community. And what I'd like to say is what I hear people voicing in the community is they want an organic community where we deal with some of these issues in a less intensive way. So instead of approving one large project, we have the time to make small mistakes, learn from small wins instead of putting all of our eggs into one basket. The language in the, to echo what one speaker has said, it's not necessarily that small commercial is a problem in Rosemont. We all appreciate the benefits of a corner store. What becomes problematic is when there's intention to build an isolated community or village where it's sort of designed to serve the people who live in that particular small area. So we would hope that, and how can the OCP reflect that there would be natural integration between the folks that reside and use the services of Granite Point with the folks living in Rosemont. At this point, there really doesn't seem to be a connection there. Like there doesn't seem to be a connection between the people who live in Granite Point and the prospective development. So I don't have anything else that's like really fancy or eloquent to say, but I just say like want you to know how many people talk about this every day. You're seeing like a few people who are comfortable enough to come forward and speak. But this is dinner time conversation every night in Rosemont. Is this topic. And almost every, like I can't think of a household who I haven't spoken with my neighbor who's not discussing this on a regular basis and doesn't trust council to hold this. So that's why I'm here before you today, just to let you know that people are really concerned about 4.9 and we entrust you with the future of this process, and we hope that it can truly remain a live document and reflect the current needs of the community.
Do I have any other speakers?
Morrison and Council. My name is Dale Butterfield. I live at 806 Victoria Street. I'm born and raised in Nelson. I'm third generation. I've seen a lot of changes in this town in my life, a lot of them positive. I feel like this is taking the city in a direction that is going to make it really challenging for the local businesses to continue to survive and prosper. I know a lot of business owners right now that find it hard to simply hire staff and pay them a wage that they can afford to live here or even to find a place. The developers on their website say that they are going to build a luxury resort on par with the greatest resorts in the world, which means, you know, they're going for billionaires and multimillionaires. I think the commercial hub is going to reflect that type of clientele, which is just going to put further pressure from there to the surrounding areas and all throughout the city. So I think 4.9 needs to be reevaluated and considered removing.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going, John, you're gonna have to wait one. Pink shirt, please come. No, here, come in. Yeah, there you go.
Hello, thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to speak. Hi, Mayor and Council. My name is Gala Raffo. I live on Creek Street and I was born here and raised in Nelson. I'm strongly against Section 4.9 of the OCP and request that it is to be removed. This will inevitably cause a skyrocket in the housing market, which will make it quite nearly impossible for me and the younger generation to stay in our hometown. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, John Alton, you can jump up.
Mayor Morrison and Council, yeah, I feel strongly about this, and I think how can we avoid this in the future through the OCP or some other mechanism that we can have control over what development happens in Nelson. And somebody else mentioned there's other like high-end developments that aren't really going to serve, in my mind, what we need here. People to move here, raise families, work, have jobs, be part of the community, and not high-end developers. So how could this happen? I know Whistler, they developed a housing authority where the housing authority really could deal with developers in a really strong way. And when we say requirements for affordable housing, I think that's way too, soft. How, that can be anything. Like, how can we develop some kind of concrete way that we get what we want? We get truly, affordable subsidized housing. That's what's needed here in this town. That's all I want to say.
Asking for anyone else that would like to come forward to speak. Okay, here we go. Go on up.
Mayor and Council. My name is Margie Hills and I live at 1608 Crease Avenue in Rosemont. And I've lived there for 28 years. I've raised my 2 children there. And I love that neighborhood. I love the golf course, I love the trails, it's beautiful. But I am strongly opposed to what's taking shape there and what's being proposed. I went to the community meetings, or I tried to, and it was already a done deal. There was actually no opportunity to speak, and I just felt like we were silenced. And I know many people in the neighborhood. I don't know one person that is interested in having this development, like not one person. So I am also asking that council and mayor, please remove this from the OCP and do the right thing. People here, we don't want it. We just don't want it. And I speak for my neighbors that can't be here tonight, and they have sent letters in. I think Stevlin addressed that beautifully, and we don't want it. That's it. Thank you.
asking again for anyone else in the room that wishes to come forward. Am I seeing somebody in yellow? Oh no, they're escaping out the door. Just in case you think I'm not watching the room. Okay, I have a hand,
Can I have a second round, just very short?
no. No, sorry, Kim, but somebody, did I see a hand at the back corner? Okay. Okay, so now my rule sheet says. Are there any further speakers? Going once. Are there any further speakers going twice? Are there any further?
I just forgot to mention, I think that my address is 121 West Richards.
I think when you signed in, we have your address.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So, and for a third time, any further speakers? Seeing none. He's counting to 10. I now declare the public hearing closed. So I really want to thank you all for coming out, and for those that are always brave enough to come forward and speak, and thank you for the majority, just remembering to keep the respect in the room and not clapping and cheering too much. So thank you again for that. It's always a challenge. So thank you for the respect that you showed to all the speakers in the room tonight. And so what happens now, the public hearing is closed. Council is gonna have a bite to eat. And the regular scheduled meeting starts at 7. And at 7 o'clock, the council will be doing the last final debate regarding the readings, the third and final readings of the OCP at that time, and the zoning change, the housekeeping zoning change. And so that's just how it now goes. That's the next step in this public hearing process. And so you can all, I don't think you want to stay for the next 45 minutes, but you're all welcome to come back at 7. Have we fixed the streaming issue?
Yes, we've been streaming for the last hour when Dylan showed up. He fixed it for us.
Okay, so this means that if you did want to go home, you would be able to turn us on from the comfort of your own home and watch the debate at 7 o'clock. So you have some options in front of you. I do ask that you do not engage with the councillors as you leave the room. If you leave or if you stay, not to engage with councillors. We cannot at this junction have any more information given to us. Okay, you can't give information to one councillor that every councillor isn't privy to. So that's why the public portion is closed. So just so you understand it, it's quite sort of dogmatic and rule laden, but these are the rules around this to make sure that these decisions are all equitable.
Can I just ask a question? You're gonna debate and then is a decision made on the OCP
Yes,
tonight?
yeah, tonight. The decision has to be made. We've heard the public hearing. We can't wait till next week or next month. We go right into, this is it. We've now gotten letters. We've heard from the public. We've debated this at first and second reading. We've been here for 2 years getting updates. Tonight will be the night that we make the decision.
And it's open to the public?
It's open to the public. You can come back at 7, or like I say, we've got the streaming part fixed so you could watch from home. So I encourage people to choose whatever they wish at this junction. So, but thank you very much for coming to this very important meeting.